Welcome to UE Systems Ultraprobe 401 Digital Grease Caddy Equipment Orientation for Airborne Structure-Borne Ultrasonic Inspection. Presented to you by UE Systems Incorporated Training Division. The 401 Digital Grease Caddy comes with a ball swivel and a clamp to fit to a grease gun. The ball is mounted to the bottom of the grease caddy. It also comes with a magnetic transducer seen on the other side of the grease gun nozzle. An optional pouch with a belt clip is available. Let's go over the different parts of the grease caddy itself. The instrumentation display panel, digital. The on-off button, also used to select some items. The sensitivity adjustment dial, spin and click to select and to adjust. The headphone jack, which is a 3.5 millimeter mono split headphone jack. The SD card port, which does have a cover to keep dirt and other things out, contaminants. The BNC connection for magnetic transducer. The charge port. An LED light. The Ultraprobe 401 digital grease caddy comes with an available docking plate to mount instrumentation to the grease gun for an easy application. Here we see the docking plate attached to the actual grease gun and gives it a place for the magnet to rest. Simply unscrew the tip of the grease gun, screw on the docking station, the grease gun tip. Here we have some close-up photos of the actual docking plate for the magnetic transducer. The sound wave will travel up the grease fitting onto the nozzle of the grease gun and to the docking plate, all metal-to-metal contact, which is good sound transfer. To power on the Ultraprobe 401 digital grease caddy, press and hold the power button located below the display screen. Hold it down long enough until you see the loading screen appear. The sensitivity adjustment, which is a sensitivity dial, allows for easy navigation and adjustments. The sensitivity dial is used to adjust sensitivity values as well as navigate through the menu options. Once powered on, we have certain areas of the screen that we're going to discuss. The first thing we'll discuss is the function bar. The function bar sits at the bottom of the screen. Here it says store record. Using the sensitivity dial, click and spin until the function bar is flashing. So you will click until that function bar flashes. Then spin to the desired function. If you want to use that function, you will click to enter that function as it's flashing. The function bar options are that you can rotate through: display number 1, display number 2, store record as seen here, SD card info, and setup menu. We will go through all of those. Let's take a look at the two different displays offered on the Ultraprobe 401 grease caddy. Display number 1. On display number 1 in the highlighted yellow box, this is our machine and test point nomenclature. Motor 2, motor inboard bearing. Motor 2 is the machine or location name. MIB, motor inboard bearing, is actually the test point name. S equals 70. This is the sensitivity setting, which ranges from 0 to 70, 70 being the highest. This normally flashes when you can adjust it. It is also the resting or home spot for the sensitivity dial. 006 is the actual test point record number. It correlates to the nomenclature motor 2, motor inboard bearing. You can have up to 400 test points in one route. This is generally too many. 50 to 150 test points is the normal. The decibel or flashing arrow appears in the box here. This arrow is flashing to the right. The arrowhead is not formed yet, as when the picture was taken, it was in the middle of flashing. The arrowhead would be sitting here and flashing to the right. This indicates the sensitivity is not high enough and the unit cannot get enough input to form an actual digital decibel. If it's pointing to the left as it flashes, that means turn the sensitivity down. it is too much input to form a digital decibel. Once a numeric value appears, the decibel, we have the instrument set correctly. Then we have the baseline indicator. If the Ultraprobe 401 grease caddy is set up an instrument setup to automatic and not manual, the information from the baseline, from the route, from the DMS software will be transferred back to the 401 grease caddy from the baseline information. So here we see the baseline reading for this particular reading, record number 6, motor 2, motor inboard bearing, was 33 decibels. Once I have a decibel here, I can compare the current reading to the baseline reading. On display number 2, sensitivity is setting at the top left of the screen. This is set currently at 69. Remember, it's 0 to 70 for the sensitivity. The record position is number 3. No name or nomenclature is shown on this particular screen. The decibel, or the 2 arrows telling you which way to adjust the sensitivity. Currently, the dB is 19 decibels. This particular display has the intensity meter with it, telling us it's rather loud or rather quiet here. It is a bar graph that will fill up the entire screen if it's extremely loud. When storing data, navigate to the function bar and select Store Record. Once stored, the confirmation screen will appear. So from either screen, push the sensitivity knob or dial until the function bar flashes. Rotate it till it says Store Record. Once it says Store Record and you have a dB that you like and is steady on the screen, you can store that record to the current position as seen here. Once you push and hold that sensitivity dial for just a second longer than you normally would, you will see Store Record confirmed, and it will advance you to the next record, which in this case would be record 2. Very simple storage process here. To view stored or baseline data, select the desired record number. So here we select record number 6, and then we will see the baseline data. There's no current data yet, but we can even skip ahead to record number 7 and see what the baseline is, record number 8, see what the baseline was before we store any information. Using the sensitivity dial, press until the record number is flashing. The baseline data will populate below the record number, which is the dB from the baseline. Knowing that baseline decibel value assists you while using real-time lubrication methods of ultrasound. The SD card information. From that function bar, you can choose SD card or SD info. Once you make the function bar flash and rotate until it says SD info, and you push and hold that sensitivity dial just a little bit longer than normal, it will pop you into here, which you have the options of deleting all the files of the SD card at once, or you can take the SD card out of the unit when it is off and put it into your computer and delete all the files. You can view the free space and info on the SD card or display all the files that are there, which will be all text files. To exit this, push and hold, and it will exit back out to the display you left. To get into the setup menu options, you would again push the sensitivity knob until the function bar was flashing. Then you would choose rotate until you see setup menu and choose by holding down on the sensitivity dial just a little bit longer than normal, and you will come into the setup menu. These are all the items that we're going to cover. The first thing is add remove SD card. So once setup menu, it will say add remove SD card as the first menu item. So there's only 2 ways you should take the card out of the unit. When the unit is completely powered down, you can then remove the SD card. Or you can go to menu item number 1 and choose it again by holding a little longer on the sensitivity dial, and it will tell you safe to remove SD card, and then it will ask you to put one back in. Once you put one back in, that screen will disappear. Those are the only 2 safe ways, so we don't mess up any kind of software information or firmware information. The second option, and you can see the Add Remove SD card option is number 1 item that pops up into the menu. If you'll rotate, once you're into the menu area, if you rotate the sensitivity dial to the right, we'll start highlighting as we go down and talk about these. Here we have store before and after. Inspectors can store a decibel value both before and after the lubrication if this item is turned on. This can be trended to ensure precision lubrication practices. So once we download, you'll have 2 readings in the DMS software, one right before lubrication and one right after lubrication. And hopefully all went well and you'll see a lower decibel in that second reading. To turn this option on, come to this menu item, select with the sensitivity dial by holding it longer, store before after option. Then once in, you'll come to this screen and it'll either be on or off. Rotate till it says on and click the sensitivity dial to select on. Add lubrication amount. So how many pumps or how many shots of lubrication did we put in? To assist with lubrication excellence, the 401 Grease Caddy gives you an area that you can actually save that information. To turn this on, in the setup menu, rotate till Add Lube Amount. To turn on, select Add Lube Amount with the sensitivity dial. And in here you will see on the second screen that pops up, it's either on or off. Rotate till it says on, select with sensitivity dial at that point. We'll show you momentarily. Once turned on, if you were in one of the displays, you would then see this number down at the bottom, 2 digits numbers. Hopefully you're not putting 100 and something shots into the bearing. So up to 99 shots can be seen here. To do so, press and release the sensitivity dial until the 00 is flashing. Using the power on off button, quickly press and release to input the number of strokes or the pumps of grease. So you use the sensitivity dial, push, push, push until that flashes to the bottom right there of the screen. Then you'll actually use the power button, the black power button in the middle of the display, right below this, and you will use this to input by clicking it quickly to how many pumps you put in before you actually store the record. Instrument setup is fairly important if we're route-based. While baselining, we don't want the instrument to read any information because there is no information to read, and it will default to all of its values per test point. So it will keep defaulting every time you store a record back to 30 and 70. The sensitivity will go all the way up, no frequency change, anything. We don't want that while we're baselining. But once everything is baselined, we want to come to instrument setup and change this to automatic. By changing to automatic, it allows the unit to pull all the baseline information over and set the unit to the same frequency, sensitivity, and show you the readings that we're taking during the baseline. This does this per test point. So during baselining, we want the instrument in manual. For every other route after baseline, we want the instrument set up in automatic. Default settings. Always good when you first start using an instrument. So when you have everything so mixed up, which I hope you do, that you get in here and you play with this to get to know it. But once you get it so messed up you can't remember what was changed, you can come to the menu item of default settings. If we default the settings, all we're going to do is clear anything we stored on the onboard memory of the unit. Nothing gets cleared on the SD card. And then it returns it to the way it came out of the box at 30 kilohertz, sensitivity set at 70, and nothing stored in it. So you would rotate in the menu to default settings, select it with the sensitivity dial. It's going to say yes or no, rotate to yes, select it, and then it will confirm the defaults as you see there. We will continue down the menu. Here you see down the menu list, we finally come to user sensitivity default. That is, where does the unit come on? It doesn't lock anyone out of adjusting the sensitivity. It is strictly where does the unit default to when it comes on or is at a blank spot for a reading that has no baseline to it. That sensitivity default that we program in is 70. You may change that. If that's always too loud, try half of that, 35. You can still adjust the sensitivity. Moving down the menu items, user frequency default. Again, where does the unit come on if no baseline information is available for it to read? 30 kilohertz is the default setting. If you choose to do extreme slow speed bearings and you want it to always come on at as low as the frequency will go, 20 kilohertz, you may choose 20 kilohertz here. That way it always defaults to 20 kilohertz. Again, does not lock you from adjusting the frequency, just where does it come on, or if there's a blank spot for a reading with no baseline information. Continue down that list to frequency adjust. To adjust the frequency for this particular unit, you must come into menu number 8 here and choose frequency adjust. Then you will adjust your frequency to the desired frequency you want. The range of the Ultraprobe 401 is 20 kilohertz to 100 kilohertz. That will be where the reading is taken as soon as you exit out of this menu item. Again, if the gun is set up in automatic mode, then the test point will adjust to whatever the baseline was taken at, not what you set to here. We then come to display response. Once you choose display response and enter into here, display response has fast, medium, or slow. Fast is a little too fast. If you're using the intensity meter, it pegs out very fastly. Things move around the screen fast. If you're using slow, you wind up double clicking on that sensitivity knob because the screen does not react as fast as you think it should. Medium seems to be about where everybody thinks it should be. But again, this is a user setting. Wherever you want it, you can put it. I would start off in medium as a suggestion. It's just how does the display respond? Headphone volume. This does have a separate headphone volume from sensitivity. Remember that sensitivity is an adjustment of the input, how much sound the gun is receiving. It has nothing to do with the output of the headphones. Though the more sound we receive, the more sound that will come out of the headphone. So it affects the headphones, but the sensitivity setting is not a volume adjustment. This has a separate headphone volume output setting. You can come in here and adjust this 0 to 99, I believe. Inspector ID. This could be important information. If we have multiple hands on this unit, who took these readings? You set it once and then take your readings and download. That will go in the software with 3 alphanumeric characters. Maybe it's initials, but you can change what those are here. Item down would be set date format, and all that is month, day, year, or day, month, year. How do you want the date to appear? It should match whatever your computer is. Calibration due date. Not when it was calibrated last, but when it is due in for calibration. This particular model was due in November 13th, 2015. So if it was current day, like it is now in 2020, this gun would be well over 5 years out of calibration, or almost 5 years calibration. The next menu item down is DB scale type select. This is fairly important. If we have 2 different units taking readings, for instance, if we were using an Ultraprobe 10,000 with a stethoscope module to take the readings and trend, but we use the 401 digital grease caddy with the magnet to come back and do the lubrication, and we're loading the same route to both units, those 2 units will read differently because one has a stethoscope module and one has a magnet. So the scale would not match between the 2 units because they're using different modules. So to correct this, in the Ultraprobe 401, we have an offset scale available. Normally, the DB scale is in relative to UE systems calibration. You can change that by offsetting it. So what we would do is take that 10,000 unit and the 401 unit out to a bearing. We would pick an exact test point. We would put the 10,000 on that test point. And since it's the stethoscope module, and the stethoscope module typically reads a little louder than the magnet, let's say we received 52 decibels of a reading with the 10,000. I would then take the 401 grease caddy, put the magnet in the exact location that I took the reading with the 10,000 and the stethoscope module. We see what the 401 reads. Let's say the 401 reads 44, a difference of 8 decibels. Remember, the 10,000 read 52. We're now reading 44. So what we would do is come to dB scale type select in the menu on the 401, and then change the scale from relative to offset. Next, we would rotate in the menu. Once we chose offset, we would go back into the menu. The next item down would be dB offset value. So if we're going to offset it, we have to say by how much do we offset it by? And you can do plus or minus. Here you have a -10 up to a +40 to offset it by. We need to offset, if you remember, by 8 dB, and we need to offset it by a +8 dB. We want to make it read like the 10,000 was reading 52. It's reading 44. So we'll offset it by a +8. And that's how you offset the units. And then continue on your way. You only have to do that once. New item down is the battery level. The battery level on this unit lasts a fairly long time, but it's always good to check. So go to the menu and check battery level. It'll give you a number as well as an icon to look at. If you have any questions whatsoever, please contact us. Our phone number is 1-800-223-1325. Our email is info@uesystems.com. And our website, of course, packed full of information, www.uesystems.com.